Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to have our panelists go ahead and come up here and join me on stage. Please come on up. José Brandao, Luis Sandler, Gabe. While they're coming up here, how many remember the Tonight Show? Jay Leno had a segment. Remember that? Jaywalking, where he would go out on the street and ask people seemingly simple questions, and yet most of people could not answer those questions, even if they had the answers in the question themselves. Remember that? How many of you remember that jaywalking segment, especially those of you here in the US? Questions like, where is the Berlin Wall? And people couldn't answer that. Or what country is the Queen of England from? And it just completely stumped our high school graduates here in the United States. And I remember one question was near and dear to me when they asked, what is the largest country in South America? To which the respondent proudly answered, without skipping a beat, Africa. Well, I can tell with this audience that you know exactly what the largest country is in South America, and that, of course, is Brazil. In fact, Brazil is so large that it's larger than the 48 states here in the United States, the continental US. The land mass of Brazil is larger than the 48 states. The northern tip of Brazil is closer to Canada than it is to the southern border of Brazil. It is a massive, massive country. All of South America, obviously, is massive as well. Brazil is a powerhouse when it comes to exports. Look at those exports there. Top producers, top exporters. These are the things that drive the economy, that drives private aviation, and we're going to dig into that here in a little bit. Another statistic is the average age of a Brazilian is 33 years old. In Mexico, it's 28. These are very young populations. United States, the average age is 43. So you start to see the difference in demographics. Brazil has a aircraft business jet fleet of over 1,100 jets. And we're going to start there now with our panelists. I want to introduce Gabe Bastos here, managing partner from Guardian Jet, Luis Sandler, founder of JetMatch, and last but not least, José Brandao. He's the founder and chairman of Synerjet. He needs no introduction here at CJI. Gentlemen, let's start off with just the current state in South America. Let's just talk a little bit about that. January of 2022, there were roughly 732 business jets in Brazil. Today, there's over 1,100. Luis, what happened? What caused so many business jets to just flood into Brazil in just 3 years?
Okay, good question, David. Hello, everyone. If you consider that in the last 25 years, more or less, the Brazilian fleet quadrupled. So around 300 aircraft in 2000 when I started in business aviation, up to 1,100-ish, some today. So you have organic growth, and of course, the COVID was a driven force to this phenomenon. Just another statistic, between 2000 and 2010, the fleet basically doubled, and from 2010 up to now, rose around 80%, more or less, rounding numbers. So I'm bringing this because Brazil it's a traditional market for aviation. It's a big country, like you said. It's a country that needs or lacks infrastructure, like railways, roads, and it have a lot of places very difficult to reach. So aviation is in the country roots, right? So it's a country that needs aviation, and it's mature enough, and the business aviation market it could be like in agribusiness, small aircraft up to big jets. It's a solid, consistent market. And if you go back to 2000, before 2008, a lot of companies either opened their capital, IPOs. Individuals got very richer, like the rest of the world. But to your question, I think the factors were COVID, a natural growth of a mature market, COVID, and a lot of emerging, especially younger people, a new business a lot of liquidity and wealth being created.
Jose, what do you see from Latin America as a whole? Your business deals more than just Brazil, it's other countries, other places. What are you seeing in those other places in terms of the health of the private aviation market today?
Yes, thank you, David. Thank you, everybody, for your patience to hearing us after the lunch. But much more thank you, CGI, to give me the opportunity to talk about the Latin American market. Of course, Brazil and Mexico are the two largest, biggest countries in Latin America, but we have other interesting countries nowadays consuming aircraft. And like Argentina is coming back to the game, Paraguay, Uruguay, Bolivia, Guatemala, for instance, they were very good consumers. But of course, Brazil is by far the largest market. But after all, I think that you all have to consider, and we are going to try to convince you that at the end of our presentation here, I believe that you all will have a different perspective looking at Latin America with different eyes. We represent close to 6 to 10% of the overall business aviation market. Of course, Brazil, again, and Mexico are responsible for more than 50% than the others. But we have Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, and mainly Brazil exporting a lot. Basically proteins, grains, and so forth. So the economies are becoming stronger, and the need of business aviation in the region, not only in Brazil, as Luis said, is a need because we do not have commercial flights to every city. For instance, in Brazil, we have close to 150 cities being attended by the commercial aviation. But the truth is that we have 5,500 cities in Brazil. So if you are thinking to operate nationally, you have to use your own aircraft. And that's the reason why the concept of the use of aircraft, of course, depends among the countries. Brazil has, and Argentina, for instance, has a concept of the use much stronger than, for instance, Bolivia or Belize or something like that. But the concept of the use is very well established. And then we can easily demonstrate the utility of having their own private aircraft to make the movements inside the territory. Other thing that happens with the very large jets is that the Brazilian people, the Brazilian entrepreneurs are looking for new markets. And the markets are very far from Brazil. We have a company in Brazil that is the largest protein producer in the world. They have 23 aircraft and have 400,000 employees around the world. They need to be in several different parts of the world at the same day, same time. There are a lot of groups, very huge groups, economic groups in our region. So I would like, of course, to invite you all to make investments in our region, bring your services, lawyers, and everybody in the audience, sales, and any kind of aviation business. Will be welcome, and we are here to support you if you need some kind of assistance. My company and their companies will be available, always available for you.
Gabe, what Guardian Jets obviously a global company and you see things from an international standpoint.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in Latin America, Brazil, Mexico? What's your 30,000-foot view of the market?
Yeah, well, Latin America was probably the first, well, Europe as well, frontier. The Guardian got significant growth out of the US. I was lucky to be part of that process. And it's funny because I grew up in Brazil and I transitioned my career from out of Latin America to the US some 12 years ago with some people that are here. I used to work with Embraer. A lot of my ex-colleagues are here in the first table. And I remember vividly the market shifting their own ways of doing things and deals and, you know, LOIs and things associated with the deal to match what was expected from the American market, because that was the best way to win a deal, to be able to buy an airplane, and this is how it should be done, so let's do it, although it's different than how we do it in Mexico or Brazil. And now here we are, 2 years of CJI in Brazil, having a panel of Latin America, thank you all. For the US industry, some of these players to learn how to do the Latin American way. So that shows a lot of the growth of that region. And obviously, the ones that are willing to understand and spend some time and energy knowing how, you know, the differences would go or not go for their success, I'm sure they will be very successful there and grow their business down there. I mean, to your point, Brandao, attorneys, operators, management companies, MROs, the escrow agents and the trust entities and all that are growing with Latin America.
So lack of infrastructure, lack of interstate highway system, vast distances, pent-up growth after COVID, natural market expansions, all these are reasons for the growth that we've seen up until now. What about some challenges? What are some unique things that people can try to get their arms around when it comes to doing in Brazil, in Latin America, that is? I don't want to just focus on Brazil, but all of Latin America. What are some of the peculiarities, some of the traps, some of the things that you need to watch out for as you're dealing business south of the border?
Yeah, many. Funny, we have been trying to help to the extent we can some international banks and global companies to better understand the market and see if they can get some market share down there. And we discussed about the differences and the challenges a lot. Very complex tax system, very different ways of providing things that are very standard in a global scenario, like know your clients, documentations, where is this money coming from, why this entity is different in the agreement versus the account that the money come from. Not in a way that is bad, it's just the way they do that doesn't make a lot of sense to the international community on the way the deals are typically made, and you got to understand that. For us at Guardian, Brazil, well, I should say Latin America is probably 20% of our volume between the sales team that we built down there in Brazil and Mexico, and clients they win with their efforts, and also Brazilians, Mexicans, other countries in Latin America that call on our listings, and they're not our clients are the owners of those airplanes that we're selling, and obviously we do business with them that way as well. You know, there's the interest rates are super high down there, so it's the way of financing airplanes is not the same mentality as it is here. For the taxes and the importation of the airplane, there are the trading companies in Brazil that are very vital and participant of all these deals. But if you don't know who they are, what they do, why are they there, you could think it's money laundering or something like that. It's not, but you got to learn how it works, who they are. They're here, by the way, at this event, if you want to talk to them. Yeah, so it needs some investment and some attention to be successful.
Luis, there's a saying in Brazil, Brazil is not for amateurs. Can you unpack that a little bit for us? What does that mean when it comes to private aircraft transactions?
Okay, with the market growth and like Gabe addressed, I would say the practice improved. But there are some challenges, David. For instance, that in order to compete in the marketplace, for instance, Gabriel said about the taxes or the mechanics to import. But also, you don't have like the incentives like you have here, for instance, tax depreciation or financial structures that make sense for companies to trade aircraft more frequently. So the capital costs more. You don't have this like accelerated depreciation benefits. And one thing I really noticed, if you go back like 15 years ago, almost 20, when I started selling, for instance, new G550s, the market was totally different because a lot of people, the currency was closer. A lot of people very liquid with like after IPOs or selling companies, whatever. And the gap between used and new aircraft was not so big, especially in the upper end, you know, the upper tier of the market. But with the natural market cycle, product cycle of the aircraft, and the gap being bigger, the currency exchange, you're paying more taxes or having more complex structures, it's difficult sometimes for like a Brazilian or Latin American buyer to compete with the other buyers because you don't have the same incentives. Everything is more complicated and much more costly. So this is one thing, it's quite challenging to compete in the market because now the market, it's one, right? Aviation, it's one international fixed price in dollar market. But you have complexities and also cultural differences, and especially when you say Latin America, Brazil is the only non-Spanish speaking country, and even the other countries culturally are very different. And when I say culturally, also the way they do business, and also the level of maturity and development in terms of market behavior.
Sure. Brandao, what's the easiest country to do business with in Latin America, and what's the most difficult, and why?
Chile is very easy. We sold many aircraft there. Secondly, Brazil, but even in Brazil, you have to consider the region. Some regions are easier than the others. But talking about the risks, and we have to consider that we are inside a territory with 23 different countries. Next year is an election year for many of them, starting with Chile, and we have Colombia, Brazil, and others. That situation created by the tariffs and this kind of things could happen again. I don't think that the tariffs will remain forever, but the government here use much more the heart other than reason to take the decision. So we have to be prepared for anything, as we just saw recently. There is also something, the taxes is important, is different in each country. There are many countries in Latin America that used to receive November registration aircraft. So it's very difficult for us to have a real number using the statistics you have, because the search does not contain, for instance, the aircraft that are flying in Colombia with November registration number, or in Panama, or in Guatemala. Chile as well, except the use of the, so it's tough. But what I know is that we are a big market. We are 6 to 10% of the overall market in business aviation. This is $2 to $3 billion a year, without counting the used aircraft. I'm talking only about brand new fixed wings and helicopters. So it's huge. And it's not difficult to do business with the Latin American people. It's easy. We know how to do it. It's not difficult, but it's always good to have local partners. Even ourselves, we used to have some local guy in each country to define and to try to avoid to get in bad customers or customers that does not have their money legally. Okay, well, that's it.
Let's take some questions here. In a globalized market, how much of a competitive advantage does, do you see significant, in a globalized market, how much of a competitive advantage does speaking Portuguese give foreign countries doing business in Brazil? How important is that?
Yeah, I think it's very important, at least in Brazil. And we didn't speak up much, or at least me, about Mexico, but that's another country that, despite not being as big, territorially speaking, as Brazil, it's huge. And honestly, I think for us, it's more deals than Brazil. But the proximity with the US, and so is the northern South America countries, Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, Central America, with the US, especially here at Miami, helps a lot. They're more easier, they understand a little more of what the market, how the market works. I mean, what is an escrow agent? Like, they're okay with the US dollars as their currency versus other countries a little more distant. They need to account for exchange rates and depreciations and all these things. So yes, Brazil is important to have somebody like a local partner because of still would say a lot of people just don't speak English. It's hard to get, to get by. If you're in a big city, Sao Paulo, talking to businesses that are global businesses, sure, but you go out of that big city environment, it's hard. And the competition for us, there's always a good local person that knows how to do it, and it's been doing that forever, and they have been advising their clientele to the best of their abilities, but that over time is becoming more distant from how the rest of the world does it. And the panel before was about how AI impacts all that. It's been a huge impact. Like, people come to the table okay, I want to buy an airplane, or I want to sell my airplane. They come so much more educated these days because the information is available. As long as they are English speakers, they come to Europe or US and they have some connections. The ones that are totally locals, those are very difficult for a foreigner to.
Do you see significant aviation infrastructure investments happening in Latin America to continue stimulating growth? Where? I know that in Brazil, a lot of the airports were privatized, which brought in investment. What do you see from an infrastructure standpoint? Brandao.
Yeah, so we recently saw several airports in Brazil being rebuilt. Some created recently, privately owned aircraft. The airport that we are in is a fully new and private airport, and the experiences that we are having being established there is very, very nice. Other countries like Peru, Panama, for instance, they also rebuild their Colombia, their airports. So I believe that in terms of infrastructure, we are good. But the fact is that the business aviation is growing faster than expected. And if you have a good GDP, for instance, we are used to say that the movement in terms of aviation movements double every time. So the infrastructure will be connected with the growth of each country and each economy, and it's going to be balanced by that. But if you talk about infrastructure, logistical in general, all the countries suffer a lot. So business aviation is a must to complement the models in the transportation.
Just additional comments. Things are slow, for you to build an airport in Brazil because of some laws, regulations, environment, other interests, or it's not like in China, you build things so fast. So, I mean, for instance, Brandao spoke about fully executive airport. So, but it's the first and only. And other airports, and important airports like São Paulo Downtown Airport, which used to be the preferred hub for business aircraft, it's getting more and more difficult. Like hangar prices tripled when they privatized, because they don't want business aviation. They don't make enough revenue. They're not wrong in terms of their, business plan standpoint. But the airports, it's a complication because it takes long.
So you used to see Infraero used to run most of the airports in Brazil, right?
Yes, they like a state-owned company. Yes.
State-owned company. They ran all the airports. They ran out of money, and the airports started getting old, lacking technology, and that's when they started spinning these off and privatizing them.
Correct. Which is good. It was good.
It's good from an investment standpoint, but then prices went up.
Yes, went up, and they're not like business aviation friendly.
Okay.
So that's the difficulty. Probably the most important airport in the whole country for business aviation, which used to be business aviation friendly, now they reduce slots, they reduce hangar, and they really don't want. It's not like in the US that you have like this region here. You have so many airports that, you fly 1 minute and you have a big airport with all the infrastructure.
Gabe, what is the first-time buyer in Brazil or Latin America, for that matter? What does the first-time buyer look like? Are they inheriting their money? Is there some kind of industry that they're in? Are they in the agribusiness, financial services? How educated are they? What does the first-time buyer look like?
Yeah, good question. We're getting a lot of first-time buyers in Latin America. I think even like NBAA that just happened, people came and we didn't expect them. We don't even know who they are from a business standpoint. They're first-time buyers. They're from a different market. I'm in charter or fractional ownership, and hi, I'm looking for an airplane. Can you help me? Obviously, they talk to our competitors as well, and they're doing their research. I think, and not only Latin America speaking, right, and Mexico was a good turnout at NBAA, probably because of the Las Vegas factor. They're typically coming from businesses that we didn't account for before. They're not like, bankers, pharmaceutical companies, traditional, national chains that you'd see flying private. A lot of the technology-related companies, I think as they are younger, and the first-time buyers are younger, they see airplanes more as a service and with a very practical standpoint. They don't, that trophy aspect of owning a jet is less of a relevance. These days it's more about efficiency. What can I do with this? How much it's going to cost? Is it okay to put on a charter certificate? I don't care if other people are going to fly on my airplane. You got previous generation buyers with a different mentality. That would be not for everybody, So we invest a lot in technology in our platforms to try to communicate with these buyers and educate them before they reach us in person. They already come with an understanding of at least what category they are looking for, or operating costs and prices and budgets, and that helps a lot. That new generation, especially first-time buyers coming from charter and fractional, because they come with this cabin experience and so much that these companies are investing in, doing an amazing job with cabin connectivity, the hospitality part of flying private, they come with that expectation. So you present them airplanes that, but it doesn't have Wi-Fi, and how much is for Starlink? You see what they want, right? And we need to be ready to interact with that, and the industry got to be.
So as we look at opportunities in Latin America, Luis and then Brandao, could you maybe just talk about what kind of opportunities exist there? Let's say there's somebody in this room that's never done business in Latin America. What are some things that they should keep in mind in order to be successful in whatever part of the business that they're in, whether they're in parts, legal services, whatever they are? If they haven't done business before in Latin America, what are some things that they should be keeping in mind in order to be successful at that?
Very good question, David. I think the first thing that occurs to me is MRO, like maintenance facilities, some kind of like parts, distribution center. What else? What we're missing nowadays is charter companies. And in the past, the charter companies, they used to have their own fleet. Now, most of the fleet basically manage aircraft, which they charter, like under 135. But I mean, if companies like Nicholas Air or others that we saw here, this is something we're missing. I mean, like companies investing in terms of having bigger, more solid fleets.
So the large branded fleets are missing in that market.
Exactly. So
Okay.
it's difficult sometimes for you to charter in terms of offer.
Brandao, what do you say about that?
Fractional ownership was very well discussed before in this room. And this is something that in Brazil is still not consolidated. And I don't know the reason. It's amazing to hear VistaJet or NetJet telling that the profile of the new customers are younger, the Z generation or millennials or something like that. And VistaJet said that this is the same in Europe, in Asia, and in Brazil, we do not see yet that kind of customer so clearly. But services of the attorney and know about the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is something that must be dealt by specialized people. Brokers there, but we have all the ingredients for you if you need to do something there, okay? It's easy. We know there are companies specialized in something, in the bureaucracy and the process, in importation and so forth. Those are the points that I think that I remember.
Luis, lot of especially first-time buyers in Latin America, there are things that are just new to them, like the whole concept of sending $200,000 overseas to an escrow agent or KYC. How can we help people understand those things, that they're necessary ingredients to a transaction, and become more comfortable with them? What are some things that you recommend for people to become more comfortable with KYC and some of these other practices?
It's a very good question, because the more developed markets, such as São Paulo, which is the financial capital and where the wealth, I mean, they are used to. They do big business, international business, they are used to. But when you go to other regions that are important or different profiles, they are less formal. But let me just think how I could answer this question. We have.
Do you mind if I make
yes,
a comment?
Yes, please help me.
I think, you know, one of the biggest things, the biggest differences is the level of professionals or the availability of good professionals in a market that is not developed, right? There are a lot of good people, but they're mostly in Sao Paulo and in the big cities. Then you go to somebody in the Amazon part of the country, or I don't know, a small part of the country, less populated. They don't know what's an escrow. Why am I going to send $200,000? I don't even know these people. I'm not buying the airplane yet. It's an offer, you know, this basic things. So there is a lot of opportunities for good advisors in our industry. And we at Guardian Jet try to be the most open possible to teach in a good way, try to educate. Educate is a better word. The market, as far as this is how it works, it's safe. What's an escrow agent? Connect them with a couple or three of them. So aviation attorneys, the escrows and trust entities to allow them for certain, you know, keeping the airplane on the November registry for some time. The trading companies that are here, those professionals help a lot, that the transactions happen in the way they should. This is no different than parts of the globe that's not Latin America, China.
Yeah, so it seems like there needs to be like an extra element of patience with people.
Education, maybe.
Education.
In a nutshell, it's education.
Literally, you have to take the customer by the hand.
Yeah.
and walk with them until the delivery of the product.
And this one of the questions about know your client, and I think it's important we talk about the clients that you don't want to have in countries that you don't know. Of course, in anywhere, right? Money laundering, this is a real thing, and you got to be smart about it. But there's a process, and I don't think anybody here in this audience are interested in working with somebody that doesn't pass know your client, right? So to that extent, the market is mature enough. I mean, very difficult you would bump into a buyer that if you can make sense of how this money come from. Very, very difficult, very relatively simple process that you can vet, on a small due diligence. That shouldn't be a reason why any of your companies wouldn't go to Latin America. Today, it's no longer a relevant factor as far as, I'm going to end up doing business with drug dealers or doing business. Well, you could anywhere anywhere whatsoever, but not particularly more there,
So as we're starting to wrap up here, gentlemen, maybe just take a minute or so each and just maybe summarize from your standpoint what kind of opportunities exist in the market from your standpoint, what categories of aircraft are moving most, and maybe make a prediction here in the next couple, 3 years as to where you see things going. Maybe start with you, Luis.
Okay, so Latin America, 50% of the market is Brazil, 25, turboprops and jets, 25 rounding numbers, Mexico, and the remaining are different countries with importance, such as Colombia, Chile, Argentina. Venezuela used to be, it's no longer because of everything happening there. But I mean, in terms of, you asked about opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And segments. The large cabin segment, I remember when I started, the largest aircraft was one Falcon 900. And then you had 2 Falcon 50s, and Hawkers were late 90s. Hawker 800s were like spaceships already. And I remember in the beginning when I started at Embraer in 2000, I realized that in Argentina, there were more Gulfstreams. There was 0 Gulfstream in Brazil and maybe 2 or 3 in Argentina. These things really shift in the latest 20, 25 years. 20-ish years. So the large cabin market and segment grew a lot, I think probably 10%. But of course, in a different mix. It's not, like I said, the typical buyer. So a lot of opportunities for large cabins and service and infrastructure. I think those are
excellent. Brandao, what do you think?
Yes, I agree. It's a territory with many opportunities. So my message is very clear and direct to all of you. Just go there and see by your eyes, and count always on us. If you need some kind of support, we are going to stay there for you. Okay, so be welcome. No further information about the Latin American market, just contact me, contact Luis or Gabriel. We are going to be always available for you. Thank you so much.
So Western cultures, similar time zones, daily flights. There's no reason to not go down there and check it out, right, Gabe? What can you leave us with here? Your final words of wisdom.
I think it's been a great investment for us to grow there. It's besides all that they said, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of opportunities, I would say, as the fleet grows in parts and attorneys and management and charter, pilot and training. Everything related to operations is in need, right? Basically, there's a big market for the ones that would understand the differences and are willing to go and spend some time there.
So do what you love, have fun, and you'll never have to work another day in your life.
That's exactly it.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.